Ready? Okay, so my Unit 7 project, um, so it's about my dream job and how math is related to it. So my dream job is to be a diesel mechanic, and I like cars and fixing things, taking it apart and like figuring out what's wrong and then putting them back together. Um, uh, And then how much do diesel mechanics make? They can make around $4,000 every month and have a yearly salary of around 70,000. Some of the requirements that you will need to become a diesel mechanic is all you need to really become one is a high school diploma. But if you have more ASE certificates and have more experience or schooling, you get paid more, and you are a better mechanic and all. Why I want to be a mechanic is because I've always been a hands-on learner, and I've always had a thing for cars. I've always loved cars and looking at cars, and yeah, they're just really interesting. Uh, when would I use math in this job? I can use math when timing and tuning the cars and setting the right air pressure. Um, so the timing refers to making sure the engine, compression, and ignition fire at the same time, which makes the engine run correctly and like the right timing for the engine. And this is important to make sure the car is running correctly. So the steps the steps to that you use math in this would be you remove the valve core. So you take out the core, which is the this little part. You take this out of the valve stem, and it makes it so that air can flow through it quicker and fill up the tire faster. And so you'll take this out before you fill up the tire, and then the bead will seal around it, and then you have to keep the air chuck on it, and this is the air chuck. The air chuck is what you use to fill up the tire that pumps air into the valve stem. And so what you'll do is you'll fill it up to around the right pressure, and then once you're at the right pressure, fill it up around 5 or 6 psi over the recommended limit, and then once that's done, you hurry and and then you leave this on there without pumping more into it, and then you'll get your valve core ready, this thing with the tool, and then as soon as you take the air chuck off, you'll hurry and put the core in so it doesn't lose as much air pressure. And usually while you take it off, with like the 1 second that's in between taking it off and putting the core in, you lose about 5 pounds of pressure, 5 psi. And then once you're done, you just want to make sure you fill it back to the right pressure and make sure it's all good. When you're setting the air pressure on a tire, you have to account for the air that will be lost when putting in the core. Like I said, you fill it 5 or 7 psi over, and then when you take off the air chuck, you'll lose about 5 or 7 psi, and then you gotta make sure it's at the right pressure. The equation that you'd use is for every 1 second that the core is removed, leaking out air, 5 psi is lost. And for an example, if the correct tire pressure was 40 psi, I'd fill it up to 45, and then that would give me 1 second to take off the air chuck and put the core in, having it be at around the right pressure. And then in order to always be safe, you have to double check the pressure when finished to make sure it's exact, because it can fluctuate depending on how much pressure is put in. Like if it was at 60 psi, you'd want to put it out like the air would come out faster, which means you'd have to account for that as well. And that's the end.